Dr. Strecker, I have watched and listened to your presentation, frankly, in awe. And it occurs to me that if only a small portion of what you've been saying is true, that we as Americans have been, frankly, led down the primrose path by those in power who have been giving us information regarding the AIDS epidemic. What you've actually said is that the AIDS epidemic not only did not come from the green African monkey, as we've been told, but in fact was the epidemic itself was started in the 70s in Africa and coincided almost directly with a smallpox vaccination program that's sponsored by the World Health Organization. And if that's true, the implications of that, of course, are astounding. You're also asserting that this disease is not a venereal disease, may or may not be transmitted sexually, possibly can be transmitted outside the body by carriers such as mosquitoes. The virus itself doesn't correspond to anything we know about venereal diseases. The French have isolated this virus, and it can live outside the body, another thing I'm told couldn't be possible. We're hearing so much about condoms today as being a good preventative of this disease, and you've literally shot holes in that theory. All these things are astounding. Why in the world would our government, the World Health Organization, the National Institute of Health, lead us down this garden path? What's behind all of this?
Well, I think the simple answer to that is, of course, first off, if you knew that you'd constructed the virus or had somehow been responsible for its construction or spread, would you tell anybody? I think it's clear that no, you wouldn't want anybody to know that you had anything to do with it. And of course, then the people who are responsible are not going to want anybody to know that they were responsible. So it's, I think it would be naive to suspect that someone would come out and say, hey, I made AIDS and spread it. I mean, that's just
Yet you read us documents where it was the disease was predicted that we're sooner or later going to run into an epidemic like this, and then you read a document where it was proposed, why don't we try and do something like this? And then we have the smallpox inoculation program, and correspondingly in those very same 5 areas, the smallpox, the AIDS epidemic breaks out.
That's correct.
And then in America, where everybody is lambasting homosexuals as this being a homosexual disease, you've told us that there was a hepatitis B vaccine program.
Again, the epidemiology of the AIDS outbreak in the United States, in my opinion, exactly corresponds to the hepatitis B vaccine program. It corresponds not only in the exact age group, the homosexuals in the same cities, in the same time frame. 1978 in New York, and in 1980 basically in Los Angeles and San Francisco.
So how can our government be telling us that this is a homosexual disease when the disease apparently broke out
might
as a
allow
result
for
of
wide-scale treatment of entire areas simultaneously if in fact what Rife said was correct, and that was that you could treat a human being by a radio wave that would kill a virus in that human. If it requires personal dialysis-like equipment, which would be to hook the human up, take the blood out, radiate it in extracorporeally like they dialyze blood to cure kidney failure, then that is going to be a very costly, slow process. It could be effective, but it's not the way that we're going to save Africa. If that is in fact the way that AIDS or those other viral diseases prove to be cured, then I think that there's no doubt that Africa is extinct as a continent, and perhaps Asia is well down the same road, since they have large portions of their population already infected with HTLV1, human T-cell leukemia virus. Right, again, the question, it goes back to how is the virus actually getting from one person to another person, and still, I don't find any literature or data that actually tells us how a person 1, male or female, has infected another person 2, male or female. In other words, whether it's homosexual to homosexual, homosexual to bisexual, or homosexual to heterosexual, or heterosexual to heterosexual, there's really no data that says how the virus is getting from the first person into the second person, short of direct transfusion of blood or blood product. Now, the question is, how many viruses have to be present before the person is infectious? How are they being transduced across from one person to another? And at what phase during the first person, if he has AIDS, say if I had AIDS, at what course or what phase during my AIDS life am I really infectious? Is it more infectious in the beginning or during the middle of the course or at the end of the course? Those questions, as far as I can tell, have never been answered.
It seems, though, that there are either a very small number of individuals running the show or that you're a very extraordinary person. Well, there is no one else saying this.
Well, that's not correct. There are many other people saying it's been discussed worldwide. It's only been recently that this question has been discussed in this country. Dr. John Seale of the Royal Society of Medicine has said that the virus appeared to be man-made in a sense long before we did, but he couldn't exactly construct how that may have occurred. We sort of gave him maybe the information on how the viruses could have been recombined to produce a new AIDS-like virus. Jacob Siegel, an East German biologist who said that the virus was constructed at Fort Detrick in a biological warfare project. Again, if the virus is its own constructing agent, and the virus could have arisen in any laboratory at any time, more or less, since the development of human tissue culture, which arose in 1951 with the death of Henrietta Lack, every laboratory in the world is suspect. And of course, that makes all the scientists very nervous because they say, well, I mean, I surely didn't come out of my laboratory.
So in essence, you're talking about a Chernobyl of molecular biology in a sense.
It's exactly correct. Actually, if you look at the predictions in testimony before Congress, the actual predictions was that a Chernobyl accident or a 3 Mile Island accident was predicted by a physicist to be something like 1 × 10⁻18.
The chance that it would happen.
That it would happen, right. Whereas the chance of a biological accident of this nature was 1 × 10⁻14, or basically 10,000 times more likely to occur than either a Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island. Yeah, Latin America, particularly Brazil, the story goes that in Brazil bought a lot of the blood that it was transfusing in the 70s from Africa. And so that would explain how Brazil might have incurred a tremendous AIDS problem. The other problem is, of course, that there were IARC or WHO vaccine programs conducted in Brazil.
You know, I'd like to get back to this question of culpability here. You said, you didn't suggest, you said that it was it the Navy that paraded a steamship up and down the...
No, it was the Department. It was, well, I don't know if it was a Navy. It was a Navy vessel, but it was the
Navy vessel
that conducted...
Actually sprayed...
Serratia marcescens bacteria into San Francisco.
Not telling the San Franciscans or anybody else. Yeah. Infected everybody, and they got, according to you, 5,000 units?
That wasn't according to me. That was according to the researcher who conducted the study. Right. The researcher who conducted the study reported, that is written in Paxman and Harris, A Higher Form of Killing, which is a review of biological warfare in this country. The researcher that conducted the study concluded that an average San Francisco resident inhaled 5,000 Serratia marcescens bacteria during that project, which demonstrated that San Francisco was subject to a biological warfare attack.
All right. Well, anybody else got something to say?
Go ahead. Is this an experiment that's gone out of hand?
Sure, except that, in a sense, we are the experiment. The whole world has become the experiment. And every person on this planet is now the experiment.
Well, I think rather than going back and trying to file criminal charges or anything like that, shouldn't we just leave that and just go on and try to...
Well, sure, lots of people will say, well, it's not important where the virus came from, you know, let's just fix it.
Fix the fault, not the blame.
The story of the African, you know, who woke up one night with a lion in his bedroom. He chased it out. He didn't look for the open window where the lion came in. He crawled back and went to sleep, and a tiger came in and ate him. So, you know, I don't believe that you can say that it's not important where these things came from. It's extremely important.
During the Middle Ages, bubonic plague destroyed 2/3 of Europe.
They have to continue on in their living as if what we predict, in a sense, is not necessarily the final outcome. That is to say that it can't happen, But what I mean to say is that we have to work to make it not happen. Each person has to become involved individually. This virus threatens the existence of everyone on this planet. You have to become involved and determine for yourself whether or not what we're telling you is true or false. It doesn't take a rocket physicist to look out there and say, hey, there's a whole bunch of new diseases which all of a sudden seem to have popped up. And so people have to become involved and find out exactly what's going on. They should not just accept everything they're being told by the so-called AIDS expert in the government as absolute fact. You have to decide for yourself whether what we've told you is true or false, and then become involved with your neighbors, your friends, your representatives, your senators, and your president. And if you do that, then hopefully we'll get to a solution. I think there is a solution. I've already illustrated what I think the solution to this problem is. But I think that this country, the whole world, has to address it in a crash program of many-pronged approach.